Welcome back to my channel. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. It's great to have you here, my friends. Every story carries a lesson, and every lesson has the power to change a life. That is not just a phrase to be remembered. It is a truth that has stood the test of time. When we listen to a story, when we open our ears and hearts to the words that are spoken, something remarkable begins to happen. The story is no longer just a story. It becomes a mirror showing us who we are, what we can become, and where we must go. Think about the moments in your own life when a single story stirred your heart, when a simple tale awakened something deep inside of you. That is the power I am speaking about. A story may look simple on the surface, just characters, events, and words on a page, but within it lies a seed that can grow into courage, into wisdom, into hope. A seed that, when planted in the soil of your heart, can produce strength in the very moments when life feels heavy. That seed can be a lesson about patience, about forgiveness, about the fight for justice, about the value of faith. It can remind you that life is not empty, that every trial has a meaning, that no tear is wasted. When Edmond Dantes in the Count of Monte Cristo faced betrayal, loneliness, and despair, it was more than a man's struggle written in a book. It was a lesson written for us all. It tells us that the human spirit is stronger than chains, stronger than prison walls, stronger than the lies spoken against us. And when we read that story, we are not simply entertained. We are called to rise. That is why every story carries a lesson, because it holds a voice that whispers across time, a voice that says, you too can endure, you too can overcome, you too can live with hope. You see, lessons do not always come from classrooms. Some of the greatest lessons come from a story told long ago, written in words that reach beyond their time. The words settle into our memory, and when the day of trial comes, they rise up like a guiding light. That is why stories matter. That is why this story matters, because one lesson can take root in a weary heart and change its direction forever. Think for a moment, how many lives have been changed by one lesson, one truth, one moment of clarity? A child hears a story of courage and one day grows into a man or woman who refuses to back down in the face of fear. A weary traveler hears a story of forgiveness, and it breaks the chains of bitterness that have bound the heart for years. A student learning English hears a story filled with words that are not only new but alive, and suddenly those words become keys, unlocking a future that once seemed closed. Every lesson has this power because it does not stay on the page. It steps into the heart. It begins to live within us. And once a lesson comes alive, it cannot be ignored. It moves us. It pushes us. It shapes us into people who think differently, who speak differently, who live differently. That is what makes stories such powerful teachers. They do not preach at us. They walk with us. They show us through pictures, through characters, through struggles, what life is all about. The Count of Monte Cristo teaches us about betrayal, but it also teaches us about hope. It teaches us about loss, but it also teaches us about redemption. These are not distant ideas. These are lessons that each of us will face in our own way, and when we face them, we will remember. We will remember the story. We will remember the lesson, and that memory may just change the decision we make, the step we take, or the road we choose to walk. So when I say every story carries a lesson, and every lesson has the power to change a life, I do not say it lightly. I say it because it is true. You may think you are only listening to a story. You may think you are only learning English, but in reality, you are opening the door to lessons that can shape your future, lessons that can strengthen your soul, lessons that can lift your life. That is the power of a story. That is the power of a lesson. And that is the power that can change your life. My friends, words are not just sounds, they are bridges to understanding and freedom. Think about that for a moment. Every word we speak carries weight, carries meaning, carries the power to build up or to tear down. Words are not empty noises that pass through the air and vanish. They connect one heart to another, one mind to another, one life to another. They are the very fabric of our communication, the way we express what we believe, what we feel, and what we dream. When a child speaks their first word, the parents rejoice because they know a bridge has been built. That child has taken the first step toward connection, and as more words are learned, more bridges appear, bridges to family, bridges to friendship, bridges to understanding the world. Without words, there is silence, isolation, confusion. But with words, there is light, there is clarity, there is the chance to be heard and to be understood. You see, words are not just about language lessons or grammar rules. They are about freedom. The freedom to share your story, the freedom to express your pain, the freedom to speak your hope. Words break chains because they allow us to tell the truth. Words heal wounds because they allow us to say, "I forgive you." Words strengthen bonds because they allow us to say, "I love you." Without words, how would we ever find peace? How would we ever find courage? How would we ever discover freedom? The Count of Monte Cristo reminds us of this power. Edmond Dantes was betrayed, imprisoned, and silenced. For years he had no voice. For years he lived in darkness, unable to share his truth, unable to defend himself. And in that silence he knew the pain of losing freedom. But when the moment came, when he found words again, when he could speak, when he could act, when he could tell his story, those words became bridges. Bridges to justice, bridges to destiny, bridges to a new life. That is why words are so powerful, my friends. They are not just for speaking. They are for setting free. There are nations built on words. Declarations that began as ink on a page have given freedom to millions. Promises spoken aloud have lifted people from despair. And even in your own life, the words you choose matter. A single kind word spoken at the right time can turn sorrow into hope. A single true word spoken with courage can tear down the walls of lies, and a single gentle word can soften the hardest heart. Now, when you are learning English, you may think you are just learning sounds, letters, and phrases. But you are learning far more than that. You are building bridges. Every new word you learn is another bridge to understanding, another bridge to opportunity, another bridge to freedom. You are giving yourself the power to reach across cultures, to share your heart with someone who might otherwise never hear you, to step into doors that once seemed closed. That is the gift of words. Do not underestimate their power. The wrong words can destroy trust, but the right words can rebuild it. The wrong words can stir anger, but the right words can bring peace. Words have started wars, and words have ended wars. Words have broken lives, and words have saved lives. That is why I say to you today, guard your words, but also use them. Do not keep silent when the truth must be spoken. Do not withhold kindness when encouragement must be given. Do not hide behind fear when freedom is waiting on the other side of a word. And do not forget that words connect you not just to others, but to yourself. The words you speak to your own heart matter. When you wake up and say, "I can," those words build strength within you. When you say, "I will not give up," those words create a bridge to resilience. When you say, "I am worthy," those words open the way to confidence. Words shape the way we see ourselves and the way we see the world. So remember, words are not just sounds. They are not meaningless noises drifting away with the wind. They are bridges, bridges to understanding, bridges to healing, bridges to freedom. And when you learn them, when you speak them, when you live them, those words can carry you farther than you ever imagined. That is the power of words, and that is the freedom they bring. My friends, when we read with open eyes, we grow with open hearts. Reading is not just about looking at words on a page. It is not simply an exercise of the mind. It is an opening of the spirit. When you take up a story with your eyes truly open, you begin to see more than ink and paper. You begin to see life itself reflected back to you. The characters are no longer strangers, they are companions. Their struggles become your struggles, their victories your victories, their lessons your lessons. And in that connection, your heart begins to grow. So many people read quickly, carelessly, their eyes skimming across the page without pausing to feel. But to read with open eyes means to read with a willingness to be touched, to be changed. It means allowing the story to reach deeper than the surface. It means laying aside distraction and pride, and letting the truth hidden in the words break through the walls of your heart. Because every true story carries something more than entertainment. It carries a spark, and when you open your eyes to see it, that spark can become a flame inside of you. Think about the Count of Monte Cristo. If you read it with closed eyes, you may only see a man betrayed, imprisoned, and later seeking revenge. You may see only the surface of events, the drama of what happened. But if you read with open eyes, you will see more. You will see a lesson about patience, about endurance, about how hope can survive in the darkest dungeon. You will see a man transformed not only by suffering, but by wisdom gained in that suffering. And when you see that, something begins to stir in your own heart. You begin to believe that you, too, can endure. You begin to believe that no matter how deep the pit, there is still a way out. That is growth. That is the heart expanding with truth. Reading with open eyes also means humility. It means we do not approach a book thinking we already know it all. It means admitting that there may be something here for us to learn, some truth we have overlooked, some wisdom we desperately need. When we open our eyes in this way, we become students, and the story becomes our teacher. And every good teacher changes the heart of the student. That is why reading, real reading, always produces growth. And this growth is not cold, intellectual growth. It is not about memorizing facts or collecting knowledge like coins in a jar. No, it is about the heart. It is about compassion, about empathy, about the ability to see through the eyes of another human being. When you read with open eyes, you step into another life. You feel the pain of another, you share in their joy, you walk in their shoes. And that experience stretches your heart, makes it softer, makes it stronger, makes it more alive to the people around you. Without reading in this way, the heart can grow narrow, small, closed off. But with reading, the heart opens wide. That is why stories have shaped nations, why they have moved people to rise up for justice, why they have inspired men and women to acts of great courage. Because when eyes are open, hearts are touched, and when hearts are touched, lives are changed. This is why I urge you, especially as you learn English, not to read as a duty, not to read as a task to be completed, but to read as an invitation. Every word is an open door. Every sentence is a step into another world. If you walk through those doors with your eyes open, you will come out not only with better English, but with a greater heart. And that heart will carry you farther than language alone ever could. So let your eyes be open when you read. Let the words speak. Let the story live, and you will find that as your understanding grows, so will your compassion, your wisdom, your strength. That is what it means to read with open eyes and to grow with open hearts. My friends, the Count of Monte Cristo is more than a story. It is a journey of hope, justice, and destiny. On the surface, it may appear to be only a tale of a man who was betrayed, cast into prison, and later set free to reclaim his life. But when you look deeper, when you allow the message to reach you, you begin to realize that this story speaks to the very struggles of the human heart. It speaks to the moments when we have been treated unfairly, when we have been broken by life, when we have wondered if there is still a future worth reaching for. Hope is the first lesson we find, Edmond Dantes was thrown into the darkest of prisons, stripped of everything he held dear. He lost his freedom, his family, his love, even his name. Yet within those stone walls he found a flicker of hope that refused to die. Year after year he clung to it, and that hope carried him through the nights of despair. It gave him strength when his body was weak. It gave him vision when his eyes could see nothing but darkness. That same hope speaks to us. No matter how deep the pit, no matter how dark the valley, there is always a light ahead. That is what keeps us moving, what keeps us believing, what keeps us alive. Without hope, the soul withers, but with hope, even chains cannot bind us. Then comes justice. For many years, Dantes was silent, forgotten, cast aside by those who lied about him. But justice has a way of rising in time. Justice is slow, but it is sure, and when the moment came, Dante stepped into his destiny not only with power, but with purpose. He sought to make wrongs right, to shine light where there had been shadows. And though his path was not perfect, though he struggled with vengeance and mercy, we see in his journey the cry of every human heart, the cry for justice. We live in a world where injustice often reigns, where lies seem louder than truth, where the innocent suffer while the guilty prosper. But this story reminds us that justice is never truly defeated. It reminds us to keep standing, to keep speaking, to keep believing that what is wrong can be set right. And in that belief, our hearts grow stronger. And finally, destiny. Dantes thought his life was over when he was locked in that cell. He thought his story was finished, his future destroyed, but he was wrong. There was still a plan, still a purpose, still a destiny waiting for him beyond those prison walls. And when he was finally set free, he discovered that his trials had prepared him for something greater. The pain had not been wasted. The years had not been lost. They had shaped him, taught him, made him ready for the path he would walk. And so it is with us. Sometimes we think our dreams are gone, our opportunities lost, our destiny destroyed, but there is always more. There is a road beyond the struggle, a calling beyond the pain, a future beyond the present. And if we endure, if we hold on, we will find that our destiny is still waiting for us. This is why the Count of Monte Cristo is more than a story. It is a journey we all must take. We all know what it means to long for hope in the dark, to cry out for justice in the face of wrong, to wonder if destiny still belongs to us. And when we read this story with open eyes, it speaks to our hearts. It tells us not to give up. It tells us to keep walking. It tells us that even in the worst of times, there is still hope, there is still justice, there is still destiny. So let this story remind you, as it reminded Edmond Dantes, that your journey is not over. The darkness does not last forever. The wrongs will not always prevail, and the destiny waiting for you is greater than the struggle behind you. That is the lesson, and that is the power of this story. My friends, learning English is not about grammar alone. It is about entering a new world of meaning. Grammar has its place, of course. Rules and structure are important. They guide us. They help us understand how to form sentences, how to communicate clearly. But if all you see are rules, if all you focus on are lines and corrections, then you miss the heart of what language truly is. Language is not a cage of grammar. It is a door to connection, to experience, to life itself. When you learn English, you are not simply memorizing verbs and tenses. You are unlocking the ability to understand stories, to hear voices that once seemed silent, to grasp ideas that were once out of reach. Every new word is like a key, and every phrase you master is like a bridge that carries you into a world you could not step into before. That is why I say it is not about grammar alone. Grammar builds the structure, but meaning fills the house. It is the meaning that gives life to the words you speak and the words you hear. Think about what happens when you read a story like the Count of Monte Cristo in English. If you only focus on the grammar, you may see subject and verb, past tense and future tense, rules and corrections. But if you open your heart to the meaning, you begin to hear the cry of Edmond Dantes. You feel his despair in prison, his hope in escape, his longing for justice. And suddenly the story is alive because you are not just studying sentences. You are experiencing life through another language. That is what learning English is really about. It is about stepping into another world of meaning, a world where words are not dead symbols but living voices. And what happens when you enter that world? Your mind expands, but so does your heart. You begin to see life differently. You begin to see that words carry culture, history, and vision. You discover that language is not only how people communicate, but how they live, how they dream, how they hope. When you learn English, you are not only learning how to say things, you are learning how to connect with millions of people, how to understand their laughter, their struggles, their songs, their stories. Grammar alone cannot give you that. Meaning does. Some of you may be discouraged, thinking English is too hard, too complicated. You may struggle with rules that seem endless, with mistakes that never seem to go away. But let me tell you this, do not measure your progress only by grammar. Measure it by meaning. Can you understand a story that once seemed impossible? Can you share a thought with someone you could not speak to before? Can you watch a movie, hear a song, read a book, and feel even a glimpse of its truth? That is progress. That is growth. That is entering the world of meaning. And once you step into that world, you will never be the same. You will not see English as a burden, but as a gift that allows you to travel beyond your own walls, to sit at the table of the world, to hear voices from every nation and every culture. You will discover that the real joy of language is not in perfect grammar, but in real connection. In the smile of understanding, in the handshake of friendship, in the shared moment when words bring hearts together. This is why I urge you not to stop at grammar. Do not think that learning English is only about rules. Go beyond, enter the world of meaning. Let the words carry you, let the stories shape you, let the lessons sink into your soul. Grammar will give you the foundation, but meaning will give you wings. And when you have wings, you can rise higher than you ever thought possible. So remember this, learning English is not about grammar alone. It is about entering a new world of meaning, a world that can open your heart, expand your vision, and change your life forever. My friends, if you stay faithful in small steps, the language will open great doors before you. Too often we look at the size of the mountain and forget that it is climbed one step at a time. We want the reward without the process, the destination without the journey. But life does not work that way, and neither does learning. The small steps matter. The little moments you think are unimportant are the very moments that shape your future. Every new word you learn, every sentence you practice, every story you read in English, these are seeds being planted. And if you stay faithful to planting, in time you will see the harvest. Sometimes those small steps can feel discouraging. You study a word today, and tomorrow you forget it. You practice a sentence, and it comes out broken. You listen to a story, and you catch only half of it, and the temptation is to quit, to believe the small steps are useless. But I tell you, they are never useless. The struggle itself is part of the growth. Just as a child stumbles when learning to walk, so must you stumble when learning a language. But with every stumble, you grow steadier. With every mistake, you grow wiser. With every small step, you grow stronger. Faithfulness is the key. Not speed, not perfection, but faithfulness. If you keep showing up, if you keep trying, if you keep putting one step in front of the other, you will arrive. The doors that once seemed closed will begin to open. A conversation that once felt impossible will become natural. A book that once seemed too heavy will begin to make sense. A story that once sounded foreign will speak directly to your heart, and you will realize that the small steps were leading you here all along. The Count of Monte Cristo shows us this truth in another way. Edmond Dantes did not escape his prison in a single day. He spent years digging, years waiting, years hoping. Day by day, stone by stone, he carved his way to freedom. It was not quick, it was not easy, but it was faithful, and in the end his small steps brought him into a destiny he could never have reached otherwise. His story reminds us that the process matters and that patience brings reward. And so it is with you. Do not despise the small steps. Celebrate them. Every time you read a page in English, it is a step. Every time you listen to a new word, it is a step. Every time you try to speak, even if you stumble, it is a step. And step by step, day by day, you are moving forward. You may not see it in the moment, but one day you will look back and realize how far you have come. Great doors do not open suddenly. They open after faithful persistence. They open to those who do not give up, who refuse to let discouragement win, who keep walking even when the path is slow. And when those doors open, you will step into opportunities you never dreamed possible. You will meet people you never thought you could understand. You will read books that once seemed locked away from you. You will speak words that connect you to hearts across the world. That is what language can do, but it will only come if you stay faithful in the small steps. Do not believe the lie that progress must be fast to be valuable. Do not believe the lie that mistakes mean failure. Progress built on small, faithful steps is the strongest progress of all. It lasts, it endures, it carries you to places you never thought you would reach. Just as rivers carve valleys one drop at a time, so will your steady faithfulness carve a path to success. So I say again, do not give up. Be faithful in the little. Honor the process. Embrace the journey. Because if you stay faithful in small steps, the language will open great doors before you. Thank you for joining me on this journey where every story teaches us a lesson and words become bridges to freedom. Remember, when we read with open eyes, our hearts grow wider, and stories like the Count of Monte Cristo lead us toward hope, justice, and destiny. Learning English isn't just grammar, it's stepping into a new world of meaning, one faithful step at a time. If this message inspired you, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps more people discover these lessons. And make sure to subscribe so you can keep walking with us into the next story that could change your life.